thank you very much for having me today. So this is my first time doing a DCR function, and I'll tell you what, it's been absolutely fabulous. Coming from the military side of the house, it's definitely a little bit more stuffier, button-down shirts, suits, ties. Feeling like I should be in board shorts and flip-flops versus a full military uniform is actually an outstanding experience. With that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit today, kind of a little bit more squishier and not as maybe technical as the speaking opportunities prior to me. I'm going to focus on a certain type of defense analysis and the teams that I have put together to try and get after it. How I'm going to portray what I think is the right way to do it isn't necessarily a standardized way, nor is it really the views of everybody in the Pentagon or in Department of Defense. But I feel I've had great success doing it this way, and I'm just going to talk about the complexities of it, and then some of the issues that we see within the Department of Defense of trying to actually implement it to do really good analysis. First thing I'm going to ask you, I'm going to pose a question to the group. Say you have a heart attack, and you get rushed to the hospital. Do you want that doctor immediately to start operating on you? So I see everybody saying, how do I know that that's the right kind of doctor? Is it a pediatrician? Is it an eye doctor? Is it a foot doctor? Everybody has a specialty, and everybody has a role in being able to do the best work they can for the common good. Analysis should be looked at the same way. Not everybody brings the same set of skills to provide the same type of end product. And we need to know how to organize and operate to be able to effectively do that mission. In the Navy, data science is kind of a black box. It's just starting to emerge, but you're hearing it touted widely and loudly from the most senior executives within all of the services and in the department. What they don't realize is the military has done operations research, which incorporates parts of all of the data science fields, mathematics, statistics, but then merges that with really the warfighter and in his subject matter expertise on weapon systems to try and better basically use how we fight and how we win and succeed in combat. The trick is, though, that makes us a little bit of a generalist. So we know a little bit about a lot, but not a lot about everything. So what we really need to do is make sure we maximize who we have participating in our analytic efforts to really get the deep subject matter expertise and to provide the best product that's got the right rigor, the right level of detail, and that just plainly our assumptions and the way of doing business is the most efficient, elegant, so we put the right weapons on the right target at the right time by the right platform against, an enemy that's trying to stop us from doing all of those things nonstop. So the work that I've been doing probably the last 7 years or so is a type of analysis called campaign analysis. People have a tendency to, when they say that word, they think it is one singular tool and one singular modeling program called STORM, which is basically the Synthetic Theater Operations Research Model. It is a very large, clunky, stochastic model that runs thousands of times with about 1 million lines of code. That what it does is it aggregates every single dimension of warfare, from cyberspace, air power, naval surface power, ground, undersea, and it incorporates both the blue forces, which is U.S., the red forces, which is whoever your adversary is, and then potentially, if the sponsor or the study is designed to, explore what the contributions from allies and partners would be. So all of a sudden, you've got like a 3 large multi-dimensional problem, and this thing gets ugly very, very fast. What we're trying to do, though, is create a way that is repeatable, tractable, and I think we saw the word earlier, credible, so that way we can inform the warfighter to figure out how to best fight his force, and then 2, to help inform the budgeteers, and kind of more importantly, the folks on this side of the river, over here on the hill, when they say, do I buy more submarines? Or do I buy more strike fighters? You need a way that you can pose to them why you're deciding what to do and how much of it to buy. You're talking about billion-dollar decisions, and there needs to be a way to understand and analyze how those things all interact together so you can actually procure what you need to procure in the most efficient means possible. Now, with that being said, I'll caveat, right? Once it kind of goes into the bureaucratic gonculator, all fair, right? So who's got what going on, or who has what, rice bowl that they want to protect or whatnot. This is where you can kind of really go sideways fast. Our job is to provide that decision maker, though, with the most unbiased decision-making tools and knowledge to help him inform that decision. So I mentioned a little bit about the complexity. So you kind of have, blue, red, green. Each one of those areas has a large trade space. There are hundreds of variables within each one of those domains. Everything from every single aircraft, every single ship, every single ground unit you can think of as an entity. Every one of those entities has a host of attributes that are assigned to it. Everything from how it sees the environment, how it interacts with the environment, how fast it is, how slow it is, how long does it take to burn its fuel, how does it see the enemy. Then you could take it a step further. What weapons are on board that entity that are associated with it? How do they see the enemy? How do they shoot at the enemy? How many of them do you have? And all of that has to happen in a geography at a space and point in time. So now you start overlaying all those variables, all of the distributions of variation on every one of those variables, and try and build a black box to be able to tell you, we will beat you on day 5 with this force. That's never going to happen. That is not the intent of this analysis. At the end of the day, this analysis is merely designed not to be predictive, but to be quantitative in a way that allows me to show and create relationships about orders of magnitude. I want to be able to show that if it takes 10 things of me to do something to you, it takes you 5 things to counter it. It builds relationships to understand how we are interacting with the adversary, and then it also creates conditions about how our force operates. So if I want to do submarine warfare very close to an enemy's operation area, I may need to do things in that operating environment to create the conditions for those submarines to operate. So it starts to build out quantitatively and understand where are my first order, second order, third, and so on, conditions and those relationships defined by the math, right, of what needs to happen when and where in time to help us kind of shape and organize. By the time you get done in the gonculator here, you have a huge problem. One of the things that we'll see, and I'll talk about in a minute, though, is how do you figure out where to start from? There's so many variables, so many combinations, and you've got a limited amount of resources. There's no way, combinatorially, I can actually do all the variations in all that space, right? If I ran a design of experiments, I could take everybody's computer here, give you about 1,000 cores, and give you to the end of all of our lifetimes, and that thing would still be churning away. So Naval Postgraduate School has done a lot of work, and they have come up with nearly orthogonal Latin hypercubes to try and create space-filling design of experiments. But even with that, you really can't get after the amount of trade space we're talking about here. The other part is a lot of that trade space is operationally infeasible. So now you've got to think about from the operational perspective, but not only the combinatorics, the combinations. So just because the math says we can put these things together space and time, doesn't necessarily mean operationally we would want to do that. So there's this now, you're starting to integrate this subject matter expertise of your operators into this mix. So the process. I made it as cartoonish as it can be because I'm usually talking to general officers and flag officers. I'll leave it at that. So with that being said, on the right-hand side here, or your left-hand side, you will see 14 or so different topical areas. Those are kind of big, high-level warfare areas. And you can see it's everything from air warfare down to logistics. So how do you get, Rippets and Diet Coke and, all the necessities to the warfighter? Oh, by the way, you might want gas, too, and weapons, right, to be able to do all this in space and time. So we need to take subject matter expertise, folks that know how to do this and have operated in this world, to kind of enter into the equation. So there's ground rule 1, right? We need people that have subject matter expertise. We then feed into this middle area here, and this is what I call concepts of operation development. This is where we build the tactical level understanding of how we organize and operate the force to do a particular mission set. And when I say mission set, it can range in complexity from literally me picking up a rifle and shooting something like at the backside of this room. That's the most tactical instance you can get. Very singular dimensions, not a lot going on, one-on-one. To much more complicated scenarios where now I have literally thousands of things competing at the same time for space, all firing, all seeing, and doing a lot of things. So there's a whole lot going on there. And I need to build those organizational structures and rules of how do I want to employ my aircraft carrier? Do I want it to sit at 1,000 miles away from the enemy? Well, when do I move it from 1,000 miles to 500 miles? And when I move it to 500 miles, do I want it to run 24 hours a day or not 24 hours a day? Should I put AMRAAM AM-17s on it, or should I put more surface-to-air missiles or surface-to-ground missiles on it? So there's a lot of different complexities that need to be happen, and these operational guys start to kind of mold and build that plan out at a very high level. We then take that plan and we throw it into a war game. And so this is where now we can iterate a little bit faster, or we don't have to deal with the coding, but you can put them in literally in front of a paper map and say, if you have this and you have a red adversary and your red adversary is doing it too, like how would this play out? It's a way for us to kind of walk through at a high level very quickly these concepts of operation. So this is a highly iterative process, and you can go as deep as you want or as shallow as you want. You can really tailor it to the work you're doing. From there, we've also got to do a whole bunch of modeling and simulation work. We've got work that happens at the phenomenology level, right? So you've got radar systems, you've got sonar systems, where you need to understand literally the engineering level phenomenology of the environment you're operating in. How far can I see a low observable stealth aircraft, with a particular type of radar? You need to understand all of that work, and you have to model that in a whole different range of scenarios to be able to develop that base level of knowledge. After that, you've got to start doing engagement level knowledge. This is where I've got, say, a joint strike fighter versus an adversary stealth aircraft. And they're literally going mano-a-mano in the air, and you need to understand how the entire weapon system of one adversary person works against the other pilot. And so there's a lot that goes on there. From there, we go into the mission modeling. This is where you start to get a little bit more complicated, if it wasn't complicated enough already, right? This is where now I've got multiple weapon systems, maybe from multiple domains. And when I say domains, I mean maybe you have an aircraft, a ship, and ground forces, all fighting an adversary that have ground, surface, and air force as well. But it's in a very constrained environment. So maybe it's like literally over Washington, D.C., right? You've got this little bit of engagement going on, and you can control for the number of variables and a number of entities. But once again, it can grow combinatorially, very complex, very quickly. From there, we move into combat modeling and simulation at the campaign level. This is where it gets really complicated. This is where you try to look at aggregating everything from the layers above and all of the stuff from the left and incorporate that into one modeling and simulation environment. Now, you're compromising some fidelity when you do it, but what you're doing is creating an environment that you can create in a stochastic way thousands of replications of this interaction of these large force on large force engagements. And then from that, I can infer a whole litany of things, which is one of the areas where I think we're actually starting to fall short a little bit, and I'll talk to you in a minute. So when we're done there, we come down into this campaign analysis. And really the way this should be represented, it is not a discrete block at the end. Campaign analysis is actually operations and analysis that's happening throughout this entire cycle. You're continually learning, you're continually refining, and that all goes into your final set of analyses. So how do you do this, right? So like on the left-hand side here, you got Navy SEALs. They're very organized, they're regimented. It's the team providing the real horsepower to be able to carry out the mission. On the right-hand side, you've got a Navy strike group with Air Force aircraft and Navy aircraft all together to be able to conduct the mission. So it's this organized, structured format, but with diversity, right? So we don't want a singular type of person, a singular type of skill set, but we need to figure out how to bring organized structure and diversity together to be able to provide this product and an end result that's useful. So who do we need first? we definitely need Marlon Brando. The Godfather is key, right? And so that I was going to put Jared's picture up there. And especially with the New York Data Mafia shirts, I thought it would have been priceless. But you need somebody who kind of sits at the top and helps you as you're building out the war games, as you're building out the con ops, as you're doing the model and simulation, that helps you understand, should I go left or should I go right? And then what are the bounds? I can't underestimate how important this position is, and I can't tell you how often I see analysis within the Department of Defense that it's not realized that this is needed. I see it all the time where I see people that say, well, he's an OR or a data scientist. He can do that study director thing too. When that is a very unique skill set. You need to be a project manager, right? You need to be able to schedule. You need to understand the operational side of the house. There's a lot of different things that kind of go into that, that chicken soup. And so if you think that anybody can do it, I think that's a fallacy. And so this is, requirement one in my SEAL team here, is I need a Marlon Brando. I need a Godfather, somebody that can go kiss the ring and say, boss, I want to do this. Does this make sense? And does this align with all the other disparate pieces of analysis that are probably going on simultaneously? You need that. Second thing, you need the warfare operators. Without these guys, it's utterly impossible to do this. An example I have was I had an absolutely incredible data scientist working for me. She was extremely proficient in SAS, so that was kind of her medium, right? And was like, if you're comfortable in it and you can produce the results I need, knock yourself out. The problem was she came from a background where she had zero operational exposure. When you said aircraft carrier, she didn't know if that was a B-52 airplane, right? It was, to her, it was numbers, it was data in the data warehouse. So that was all it was to her. It wasn't until I linked her up with the warfighter when she was actually doing the post-processing analysis was she able to actually kind of start to tease out the real critical insights that was in the data. The data she was showing us and the analysis she was showing us prior to that was almost useless and insignificant. She was making connections in ways that were irrelevant, right? And so it was only through the instance of incorporating the operator into her kind of cycle of learning that really made that difference. The next one, which people take this for granted all the time, it's the wargaming side of the house. This is a real skill set. I mean, if anybody who's tried to put a wargame together and facilitate it and execute it, it's a skill set kind of unlike anything else, and I can't tell you how valuable it is. To be able to create a strategic dilemma or an operational dilemma for a set of individuals, force them and their behavior to answer the questions that you need in a format of data that you can then use to then go create a statistical model or a simulation environment is absolutely key. So this was the next part of the puzzle that you need. Then you need, Matthew Broderick, right? You need the guy who can sit down at a computer terminal and pound away on the keys, and you give him Doritos and some Mountain Dew, and you just let him rock out, right? But with that being said, there's a danger in that. Because even though you can hand him a roadmap of how you think you want the fight to be incorporated in the computer, I guarantee you within every 30 lines of code, he's going to come up to a place where he's like, I can't instantiate this explicitly. I need to create an implicit way for the program or the model to understand and operate. And depending on his level of understanding of that operational environment and of the intent of the warfighter, that can go sideways real fast. So this is another place where that warfighter needs to be literally left seat, right seat, over his shoulder, explaining, here's kind of what I want to do on the battle space. How do we figure out how to make that happen inside that computer screen, right? It's like Zoolander. The files are in the computer kind of thing. We kind of have to make that happen here. The next part, the next person I'm going to talk about is the data scientist. If you wanted a different headshot, you should have gave it to me. So with that being said, this is another person that needs to be involved from the beginning, because at every step of the way, you're trying to learn something, and data is part of that. Understanding the operational context and the key critical questions at the beginning are paramount. So I can't underestimate how important this part of the puzzle is. And I'm speeding up here because I'm running a little bit long. The final part is Mr. Rogers, right? This is that person that's been involved from day one of the study, understands the intent that the study director has had, and then what all of the pieces along the way were, and really understands those key conclusions back to the strategic insights that you're trying to communicate. Because every senior leader needs to be able to understand, comprehend what you did, why you did it, and how's it important to him. This is the guy that wraps that all together. 30 more seconds. So when it all fits together, you kind of form this team of a director, the operators, all the way down to the storyteller, and it's really a constant dialogue between all of them. With that said, I want to say thank you extremely. I'm extremely proud to have been here today. Jared, Mark, the whole team, thank you so much.